Hello, and welcome to another episode of ZenChats. This is episode 2, and I'm talking with Peter from Hatch Coding. And as you can see, I have a Zen Academy banner, shiny new banner. We're upping the production quality of this YouTube channel bit by bit. Anyway, I had an excellent chat with Peter. It's such a cool, interesting project. I'm going to give you a real quick overview of it, and then we're going to jump into the discussion. So, Hatch Coding is a project that Peter has. It's a platform that's been around for 7 years, but now it's moving into the NFT space, and it is aimed at teaching coding and more specifically generative art to children, ages 9 to 17, I think, is the primary focus, but you can go all the way down to 6 years old. And I mean, the focus is on kids, but adults can use the platform too. If you've ever had an interest in learning generative art, coding, it's free to use, excellent tutorials and guides, really, really cool platform. And yeah, it's we go into a lot of detail. He shares his screen. You can see how it works. I hope you enjoy it. If you do, please like, subscribe, comment. Those really help. And yeah, we'll jump straight into it. Cool, we started. All right. Peter, hello.
Hello. Hey, Zeneca. How are you?
I'm doing well. How you doing?
Good. Yeah. How's your day been?
It's been busy as usual, but
Yeah.
I'm excited to be here chatting to you and to learn more about Hatch coding. Hatch art, Hatch coding. What's what's
It,
what's your project called? Let's start there.
so the project is called Hatch Coding, and there's basically a marketplace emerging at Hatch.art. Um,
Uh-huh.
so I think, yeah, you go to hatchcoding.com to learn, and then you go to Hatch.art to see the work that is done by all the students who have learned.
Maybe to begin with, let's start big picture. If you can sort of explain, elevator pitch, what is Hatch coding?
Sure. So um, this all started when Khan Academy, this great global online nonprofit that has a mission of delivering a world class education for free to anyone anywhere. They're an awesome resource to learn anything. By the way, I just love them.
Yeah, that's so
Um,
good.
I found them when they had 0 employees, and I basically offered my services because I just thought they were doing like the most amazing things. And over 18 months, I ended up um, building their first teacher's guide. I coded a bunch of JavaScript exercises. I did all this curriculum mapping, and I got Sol Khan on the Colbert Report, which is like totally fun. It was like the highlight of the whole time. And at the end of it, they had 27 employees, and they didn't need a volunteer as much. But I got kind of the education bug, so I searched around for a couple of years, and I came across this idea of a better way of learning computer science because I have a computer science degree from a university, and I also am a software developer, and I just noticed how those two paths sort of intertwined, but also actually were completely separate because I actually learned how to be a dev outside of my classes,
Mhm.
and as I kind of explored this, and I talked about 200 software engineers, the same thing happened over and over, which is the engineer said it wasn't really the classes that lit the spark. Um, it was more some type of personal project, right? It was a side project or a personal project or something they did an internship that impacted customers in a front-facing way, or something that like was really meaningful to them. And on the very first day that I started Hatch Coding, one of my friends who's now doing self-driving construction vehicles, he said computer science is the magic of building something useful. And useful is different to every person, but if you can build something that you think is really, really important to you, all of a sudden you'll go crazy with it. And so my entry into this world is I was 12 years old. I was totally nerdy. I love Dungeons and Dragons. I love D&D, and I hated rolling dice. I don't know why. I just did not like the clatter, clatter, clatter on the like,
Wow.
and I had a problem that I need to solve, and I just got a brand new computer, and first one in the house, I think, and and so I used my computer to solve my problem. And when I did that, I built this little, you know, really spaghetti code app. Spaghetti code is bad code. It's not well organized code for those listeners. I built this spaghetti code app that basically allowed me to like create characters for D&D, Dungeons and Dragons. But then this light bulb also went on where it's like, oh my, you know, I could actually build anything, right? Like I happened to
Yeah.
build, and and as I talked to lots and lots of software engineers, they all said the same thing, which is the light bulb goes on when you build something that's meaningful to you. And so what I did is I decided to build a way of learning computer science which mimics that process. It's not going to be perfect because fundamentally a lot of this is like discovering something and figuring out the answers on your own. But the very first thing that you do in our app is you actually pick from themes that you like. In fact, what I can do is I can kind of give a 5-minute demo of the app.
Yeah,
And
I think that would be super useful. Let's do that.
so we're going to go to app.hatchcoding. Well, we're going to start from the very beginning. So you go to hatchcoding.com, and there's a nice screen here. You click Start for free, and this will take you to a start page where you sign up with Hatch. And so I'm going to just sign up with test 0201 because it's the February 1st. And you should, if you're doing this, of course, use your actual real address. And then 021, and then you put in your birthday. And this is so we know if you're under 18 or over 18, because we have a digital generative art contest happening every week, and those are for under 18. Part of what we're doing is we're trying to educate today's youth, age 8 to 18, on how to be Web3 native, so that 10 years from now, when they enter the workforce, they've been doing Web3 for 5, 10 years, and all of a sudden that's going to just have a massive impact on the economy of the next 20 years. That's like the big picture of what we're doing. So we pick a birthday. We're going to go test 201, pick a password, 201. And so we create the account, and you have a little modal pop-up that tells you you're going to learn awesome things. And then the very first thing that happens is that tell us what you're into, right? Like if this was me, I would have typed in Dungeons and Dragons, and I would have found out, like dragons, let's say, right? There's dragons. So I could pick dragons, and then let's say poker, no, cards.
Pokemon.
Yeah, so there's
Cards work. Yeah.
there's cards, and let's pretend that there's NFT people watching this and they like collecting things. So we're gonna pick these 3 cards, and we click let's go. And what we built is we actually built thousands and thousands and thousands of projects that all kind of teach overlapping concepts, but you get to learn it based on your interests. So we're going to give you, in this case, dragon projects and card projects and collecting cards projects along the way, so you can see how it works. So we go to show me the goods, and the whole thing is you pick a theme, which we've done, code a project, complete a challenge, choose a project, and repeat. So let's just do the very first project to see how it works. We're going to get a walkthrough here. I'm just going to end this, but there's basically instructions over here. There's a coding window over here, and there's an end result over here. And the very first thing you need to do is just type what you see over here. So we're going to go through, and we're going to say draw equals function. And you don't have to know what all this stuff does. Or if you want to, you can click explain code, and it'll tell you line by line what every line of code does for all tens of thousands of lines of code we have in our platform, which is really cool because at any point in time, there's a reference page, where you can go like, what is this line exactly doing? So the next thing we do is we click background, and Roy, this is going to be a tough question here, but what do you think the background command does?
It picks the background color.
Yes, exactly. Right. Some of this stuff is actually pretty straightforward. So here
I
we
have
have a
to think
background.
about that though.
Yes. Yeah. No. You have to think about it a little bit. So code
Yeah.
sometimes it's easy and sometimes it's hard. The next one is fill, and this is literally just like giving the computer a crayon. And in this case, 000 is black. And then ellipse draws a circle, and it's going to draw where the mouse is. That's mouse X, comma mouse Y. And then if you get it wrong and you try and check your work, it'll actually show you which lines are incorrect. And so you can go back and try and find the differences. And as soon as you're done, what we have here is we actually have a hatch project, right? It kind of looks like the example. It's a circle that moves around with your mouse, or you're holding a ball. And now what we can do is we can click submit, and it says awesome job finishing projects will give you points that help you level up. Now let's check out the challenges. Here we have some challenges. The first challenge is to try to change both the color of the ball and the background color. And I don't know how to do this exactly, but there's this thing called a coding handbook, and maybe if I go there, it'll give me a hint on what to do. And over here I see color basics, and there's superpowers you can earn as gamified, which is awesome for kids. So we click on color basics, and we see that the first color is red, the second color is green, the third color is blue, and there's even a color wheel here. There's skin tones if you want them, order of colors, and all this stuff is like really super kid friendly. There's a website called Stack Overflow. Have you ever been to Stack Overflow?
Yes, I mean, I did a little bit of coding many years
Yeah.
ago, and if I had any issue, I'd Google it, and then the first response would be Stack Overflow.
And then Stack Overflow is a very intimidating place because there's lots and lots of text, there's lots and lots of jargon, and it's very dense, which is great if you're a dev and you know what you're doing. But if you're not, the first step is to be able to start looking stuff up in a friendly environment, and that's what the coding handbook is. So Zeneca, what's one of your favorite colors?
Purple.
Purple. So we looked that up in the manual. There's a bunch of red, almost no green, and then some blue. And here's a purple.
Wow.
And what's another one of your favorite colors?
Orange.
Orange. So orange, we can actually go over here. Let's say I forget what it is. We could look it up. I think it's 112, 189 or something. So orange would be, it's loading. We have 255, 189. So we can go over here and go 255, 189. Here we go. We now have an official Zeneca project. This is customized
Woo!
to exactly what you wanted to build. And it doesn't seem like a lot, right? Like all we've done is we've changed the colors, but this is literally just the first 3 minutes of what we've
Yeah.
done. You can imagine if you're 30 hours into this and you've done this iteration of building something, making it your own, building something, making it your own, you start to like really get strong muscles on how to like build and create the stuff that you want. So we can click submit over here, and we kind of have two options over here. We can go dashboard, we can create a U project. So now we get a chance to flex those customized muscles. We can take the deck of cards here, and it'll just transform it for us so we can see kind of what's possible, right? And now all of a sudden we've taken this ball, and it's the cards that we picked when we picked our themes. And we can go to collecting cards. We even click a random button to kind of have fun with it. And here we have rocks. And then eventually we go to the dashboard. And when we go to the dashboard, I'm going to actually go to the full dashboard when everything is unlocked to kind of show you what it looks like when you get to the end. So the whole process, you do a whole bunch of these small little projects, a few lines at a time. So this is the dashboard. And if we go to projects, you'll get a sense of how many projects we have and what you can do. So these are all our projects. If we scroll down, I'm just going to go to the dense view so we can see even more of them.
These are projects that anyone can learn, or are these like done by students?
No, well, some of them are done by students because we have a certification, but for the most part, Hatch has created these thousands of projects that all have different themes. There's pumpkins, there's random colored drawings, there's baseball logos, there's spinning planets, flags, fuzzy
So if you want to
flowers.
learn how to make any of this, you click on start, and then it teaches you how to create
Exactly.
that.
Yes, exactly. And you can also filter by topics. So if you like carnival, or you like donuts, or you like tennis, or you like Marvel, there are all these awesome projects for things, right? If you like math, you can click on math and you'll see all the projects that have something to do with like fractal trees or pi approximation. What we're going to eventually get to is we have basically a generative art project. It's the very first generative art project that you can build with Hatch. We're just doing the content now. Will be ready in about 6 weeks, and it's 2 lines of code. It's basically a background command with a random number between 0 and 255, and then a line here. And then every time you refresh it, you get a circle in a different part of the screen. And this is generative art, right? Random 0 255 is pick me a color between black and white, 0 and 255. And then ellipse is just draw me a circle between 50, where the center is between 50 and 350. So this is 50 and this is 350. The whole canvas is 400. We can actually, I think, there's a grid here, so we can kind of see this 100, 200, 300, and this is 50 right here. So the center is going to be over here. There's always going to be a border around it, and then the circle is going to be about 30 pixels wide. And so here we have a piece of generative art, and you can probably in like 3 minutes have generative art, and then you can actually push that generative art to our store. But you can actually buy a piece of this art for $1 fiat money. It's not, yeah, it's not ETH yet. And there's 10,000 of them. Each one is going to be slightly different. Obviously, the versatility of this algorithm is slightly less than what you typically see on art blocks. But for 2 lines of code, it's like a really good way of getting going. And for each one of these, the student can set a goal. They can put in tags, and they can say the description. In this case, it's buy a bunch of VDEX and Pokemon. So my 7-year-old just wants to buy VDEX
He
and
sold
Pokemon.
9. He's got $9.
Yeah, he sold 9 of them, and none of them are the devs testing whether or not
Yeah.
the processing works. But from all of this, we've actually run a bunch of contests, and you can go to hatch.art, which forwards to this store. And this is all the art done by all these students. So for Minecraft blocks, Sunset Kite, a fire in 1871, and some of the stuff like this one I think is
I like the
very,
fire one. Yeah, actually,
yeah,
I like all of those. The Minecraft blocks is really cool.
yeah,
So these are done by 9 to 17-year-olds. Is that
yeah,
right?
9 to 17-year-old, and you
Oh
can
yeah, you
scroll
can see the
down.
age right there.
Yeah, you can see the age, you can see what place
That's
they got.
scary.
Yes. So this one is actually, first of all, it's scary, and then the story behind this. So all of these have stories because we let the kids tell the story, and so the story starts by following the morning of a 12-year-old boy named Ryan. Ryan goes downstairs. He meets his mother. His mother is dressed as a clown. It kind of worries him. His dad is dressed as a clown. He goes and he meets his mates. They're all dressed as clowns. He goes to school. All his teachers dressed as clowns. And then he like shuffles out of bed and realizes, oh, it was just a bad nightmare. Thank
Huh.
God. So he goes down to the kitchen and his mom is dressed as a clown.
I love it.
Right? Good
Yeah.
morning, Ryan. As she turns to Ryan, Ryan sees his mother standing there dressed as a clown. And Ryan cries out, "This is my worst nightmare."
Yeah.
So all of these, I mean, you get to capture the imagination of the kids as they're like making stuff. This person, Anve, he every single week he puts out a different story about Tim and Steve, who are penguins on the Antarctic berg, and what they do. And he's turning 10 in May, and his parents are self-publishing a book.
Wow.
And just today when Tim and Steve woke up, there were fireworks, and then the story just goes on and on. And I mean, it's really amazing. Like the art is amazing, the creativity of is amazing. The kids come up with all sorts of neat ideas, right? Like this person goes to a cottage, and Muskoka is a set of lakes in Ontario. Things in the ocean. This one is inspired. This is perhaps the most hilarious one. It's based on an abstract painting done by a chimpanzee named Congo from the 1950s. Congo has made over 400 paintings and sold multiple of his paintings, one going for $25,000. I chose to base my project around him because his style consisted of multiple lines and splotches of paint. He was also a perfectionist, and if his guardians would take away one of his paintings, if his guardians would take away one of his paintings before he thought it was finished, he would start screaming.
I love it.
You can see as we scroll down the variety of ideas the kids come up with.
So, you said before that these aren't NFTs. That you pay in fiat and USD. Is there a plan for them to be NFTs?
Yeah, so within the next 8 to 10 weeks, we're building out the Web3 part of it. So if you go to let's just do this right now because I support my son, so I want him to do well.
Yeah.
Let's just kind of go through the process now so we can kind of see what this looks like. So we can add this to cart, and then if we go to the shopping page, it says that there's this item you can pay in Canadian dollars or US dollars by just clicking here because we're a Canadian company. So we put in a credit card number over here for $1, which I'm perhaps should not be sharing that. So here, let me just move this over
Do it off
here.
screen. Yeah.
Do it off screen. So eventually you end up over here with a pay button. All my information is up there. It says buying this art enables students to learn skills in design, creativity, and coding, and you will reserve an NFT on the Flow blockchain. So you can pay over here. Um, yeah, we're gonna have to edit. So at the end of this payment process, you end up with confirmation info and the ability to help spread the word and tweet. And the art means you've bought a reserve on the Flow blockchain, or it could be Polygon, under your name, and you'll
Mhm.
be able to pick up this NFT basically this month or next month. And then once you've done this, you can actually go to My Art and take a look at the art that you've purchased. So we just purchased a bunch of art, and all this art
Mhm.
lives on this My Art page. And it basically says this is mint number 1 and 4 and 5, and they're all different. And now we have a bunch of art that we purchased that hasn't been revealed. And so you can click to reveal, and then it will load up the art and say, this is what the art looks like that you just purchased. And in about 8 weeks, there'll also be like a button over here and a button on the front page where you could basically say mint your NFT. And what
Mm.
you'll have done is basically reserved a one of one mint page for you to basically collect this and put it in your wallet
On Flow or Polygon.
on Flow Polygon. Yes.
How will it work in, say, 8 weeks when you're set up? Will it still be pay in fiat and then mint it on Flow or Polygon, or will there be a way to directly mint on Flow or
Um,
Polygon?
Both. We'll basically say, mint directly or pay by credit card.
Yeah.
I think that NBA Top Shots did this amazing thing for introducing people to NFTs by saying,
Mhm.
listen, pay with a credit card. And then it made it
Yeah.
super easy for any casual sports fan to just, buy a collectible.
No, I love it. I think,
Yeah.
so much of this is, targeted towards kids and teaching them about generative art and coding, and a lot of the buyers are probably going to be their parents and their parents' friends and their schools and eventually the wider community. But like, we're not at that point where everyone has a MetaMask wallet yet and can understand um, the intricacies of blockchain. So being able to pay with a credit card seems to make a ton of sense to me.
Yeah, it does. So I'm going to stop sharing so we can go back to chatting. Um, but yeah, I think that one exciting thing about what's happening here is that there's this whole world of people that don't know about the magic of NFTs and the power and what it can do and how special it is to hold digital goods. And then there's another group of people who are young who like play Fortnite that are really comfortable with digital goods, but they're not 18, so they can't have their own
Mm,
crypto wallet. But th- there's if they don't know explicitly that they want to do this, implicitly they're already pretty comfortable owning digital goods. And if you can
mm.
have kids being able to share stuff with other kids, for $1 or $5 or $10, I think that you could have like an active market of kids trading each other's NFTs because it's fun.
Yeah, no, I love it. I think
Yeah.
it's so cool. Just the whole concept of like, I don't think we've stated this, but this is all free for like kids. Anyone want to come in and learn how to, you know, go through any of the courses. It's free, right?
Yeah, so the whole thing is free. We have an option to upgrade to get a one-to-one lesson with a Hatch certified coach. Um, so all 400 hours of content is free. You can go all the way from what we just did Genesis art to literally 18 different chapters of learning ringers.
That's
Um,
amazing.
and we're building Fidenza as well. And Tyler said, please go build Fidenza and show me the content. So
That's so cool.
and I think that's going to be really neat when it all comes out and there's ability to go, hey, listen, I want to, uh, you know, I want to basically study the grandmasters, right? Like when you learn chess, you study the grandmasters to see
Yeah,
how they built their chess strategy. This is basically the same thing, right? Like being able to see how did Dimitri put together ringers or Tyler put together Fidenza. Um, it's instructive on how to build
yeah.
really
That's
amazing, beautiful art.
I would be so interested in that personally. I mean, I guess for anyone that isn't familiar, Ringers and Fidenza are two generative art projects by Dmitry Cherniak and Tyler Hobbs, respectively, that were released on Art Blocks, this big generative art platform, and they go for six figures. Like their art pieces go for six, seven figures. These are pieces of art that go for hundreds of thousands to millions of dollars. And now you can see how it's made, how they did it, basically.
Yeah, I think it's really, 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 really cool that you can basically connect the early learnings that kids are doing in just these first few lines of code. You add a few random functions and some if functions and you know basic arrays. Um, like these people have learned color choice, so they'll basically make generative art, but only from six colors, and then they'll pick which six colors you can choose from, and they're making decisions on how they want their art to look like. And you know, at first these decisions are pretty basic, but over time you can see the people who've entered the contest every week, like they just get better and better with their art, which is like really phenomenal.
Yeah. We haven't really spoken about the contests. Can you maybe explain how those work?
Sure. So um, when I found out about art blocks, um, about 4 or 5 months later, suddenly clicked for me that like we really teaching people for 7 years. We started in 2014. Art blocks didn't get started for another like 7 or 8 years after that. But for 7 years, we basically have been teaching kids how to get on art blocks. And the minute I had this realization, which was like October of 2021, I said, okay, the first thing we have to do is we have to start running contests for our kids, whatever coding they're doing on the platform, whatever projects they're doing in Carnival or baseball or books or whatever, like get them at least thinking about building digital generative art. So I put together an instruction sheet. I sent it out to all our like live lesson instructors, and I said, let's just 8 days from now judge a generative art contest. And we had 6 or 7, and I just said $150 first prize, $100 second prize, $50 third prize. You know, enough money to be interesting to kids, because
That's heaps of money for kids. Yeah.
that's heaps of money for kids, right? Like, and and so we did that, and the week after we got a couple more entries, and kind of it scaled from there. And then every week these kids would now enter the contest because listen, if they have a shot at 100
Yeah.
bucks, that's awesome. And all the art that you saw on the art pages, they've all come from these weekly contests, and so anybody can join, learn how to code, submit literally the first week they're learning. They probably won't win the first week they're learning, but they'll get feedback, and eventually you get some really cool pieces of art. There was someone from your community who submitted the very first week this kind of rainbow arc style, um, and the randomness was it was it was arcs. Arcs are like pie slices from a
Yeah.
circle, and uh, the colors were random. They were kind of like a rainbow from left to right, and and the pie slices were of different slices. So just imagine full moon versus like a sliver of a moon,
Mm.
but as a pie slice. And there was a random number of them. So sometimes the canvas was really full of them, and sometimes there were only like 50 of them. And it was a really interesting effect, and it was only like 10 or 12 lines of code. And I'm actually thinking about just turning that into a learning project because, like,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
Can you? I mean, first of all I want now is eat pie. So thank
Yeah.
you.
You're
Can you
welcome.
can you share that? I mean, is it easy for you to find on your screen?
I have a database of all the entries, because it's just really interesting to see what happens, and it's also nice to have them. I got introduced to the CEO of chess.com, and chess.com has
Yeah.
77 million users. His name is Eric, and I sent him an email saying generative art, and he was like, "This is just so cool." And and then we chatted, and at the end I said, "We actually have this one piece of generative art, which is chess themed." And
Hmm.
there was this 10-year-old in Midtown Toronto who sold a piece of generative art, who's a chess nerd, obviously, because he made a piece of chess generative art. He sold a piece of generative art to the CEO of chess.com.
That's
And
so
he was like,
cool.
his parents called me. I was like, this is the most amazing thing
Yeah.
ever, because, of course, that would be like a really big win.
That's
So,
phenomenal. There we
so,
go. Add to
so then we
stream.
have a memory issue because I have too many tabs open. But yeah,
Oh yeah.
yeah.
This is really cool. I remember seeing this one.
So this is basically the number of arcs over here is a random number between 100 and 400. And we basically do a loop that's going to go through the loop this many times. The X position is going to be random. the Y position will be random. So every time we draw an arc, it's going to be somewhere on the canvas. And the fill is also going to be based on the position, which is going to create this nice colorful layer. And the arc is going to be also randomly big. And so every time you refresh it, you get it's somewhat, but like
Yeah,
this is much different,
it's
uh,
very different. Yeah,
right? And all of this is for, if we just kind of get rid of this over here, this is like 10 lines of code top to bottom.
yeah,
And for like a very, very small amount of code, we can actually get um, like a really neat visual effect, which is fantastic.
yeah.
So
It just looks visually appealing. It's pleasant.
yeah, it's pleasant. So I feel like if I haven't put this up as art, I should put this up as art before the end of the show, and we should put in the show notes, because
Yeah,
this was
I'll
done
buy
by
one.
this was done by a Zen Academy member. So
It's amazing.
um, and I think it's great. First week, and and the majority of the proceeds go to the students. So if we put this up, we could literally deliver to a Zen Academy user's kid a couple $1,000s, which would be just like an amazing win if we could just sell 100 or something of these at like $20
Yeah,
each. Okay,
yeah,
so that'll be in the show notes, and yeah, let's get this Zen Academy member win.
yeah. That'd be
Um,
awesome. Um, I have another question in terms of the randomness. So, like, if I mint something, say on art blocks, I know that there's an element of randomness that's occurring when I click the mint button using, my seed as part of the randomization thing. Presumably, that doesn't happen on Hatch coding because it's just using the random function on JavaScript. I think, is that right?
yeah, so normally that's true, but there's you can you can fix it by using a command called random seed, and you can basically create a token ID and fix the random seed based on what the token ID is. So we're basically replicating what happens at art blocks by just basically creating a token hash and then basing the random seed on it. So any computer in the world, if they run it with this random seed, will pop up with the same result.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, yeah, that's amazing. It doesn't have to be as intricate as minting generative art on the Ethereum blockchain, but it's basically as good.
Yeah, it's
And
as good.
it's
You
cheap
know,
and it's for kids, and yeah,
I'm a big fan of Eric Snowfro. I showed him a piece of art. He said, "This is pretty good." We've had a lot of that on art blocks, so I wouldn't necessarily consider it for curated. But given that I know it's a kid, I give it super high marks.
yeah,
So,
exactly.
so
I
he's a
mean,
fan of what we're doing as well, which is kind of fun. And then there's like big dreams and visions for the future. I think now that we have this base, we can really build on it in meaningful ways, because there's so many NFT communities, and they're all looking for ways to bring the community together, which is kind of you did for Zen Academy, this free course, which is great. So you sent out the announcement, and then how many people like raised their hand, said that they were interested?
hundreds, I think,
Yeah, I think
within.
when I
Yeah,
checked, it was like over 700.
yeah.
So he basically had emojis at the bottom of the Discord. There was numbers 1 through 5, which is how many kids would you bring to this course? And if you added up all the numbers, it was like 720 something, um, something
So
like
so
that.
amazing.
And
Yeah, I mean, it's just such a cool concept and idea. I think so many. I mean, not just kids, so many adults, so many people are interested in generative art now with this whole resurgence of NFTs, learning how to code, how to create something, and then so many of us, well, not us, I don't have kids. So many people in the community have kids, and it's just a great fun activity, and it's free and it's exciting and interesting. So literally everyone I tell about Hatch art, Hatch coding, um, has this reaction saying, "Hey, that's awesome. That's really cool." So I think that the more people that see it and get some insight into it, it- you'll just get more users. It's bound to happen. Yeah.
yeah, no, I mean it's really exciting to talk to all the people that we're talking to. Um, I emailed like a top 5 project, and initially they said, "Sorry, we're just too busy. We have too much incoming." And then I just came back to them with a simple explanation of what we're doing and how like um, the impact that we're having on the world, and they replied and copied the founding team on that email and said that they were interested in talking. I think I've done a good job of explaining what happened without telling anything about how to reach the founding team of a unnamed project. But
Yeah.
the response is always really, really positive. And one of the really exciting things that I'd love to do in the NFT community as a whole is to just run a massive girls only version of this whole thing. Right? There are 3 or 4 or 5 at the very least really well known women led projects. And every time on Twitter I see a thread of like who's in the NFT space who's a woman or a girl, like literally hundreds of replies, right? There's this huge community of people who just want to see more women get into Web3 and NFTs. And I think that if we ran like, a full course and had a contest at the end that was specifically for girls, we could get like 10,000 girls competing, and that would and building and growing and being creative. And I think that would be amazing. So that's one of my goals for 2022. So if you follow us, which is at Code Create Earn, at some point in time you'll hear this announcement. And and I really think that it could be massively huge and really awesome. So that's one of the big goals I have for
Yeah, that sounds
2022.
amazing. I
Yeah.
think, yeah, yeah, excellent initiative, and I think a lot of people would be interested in that. Uh, what else do you have sort of planned for the future? What are your longer term goals for Hatch?
So I think one thing that's really interesting to me is this idea of like what happened with Axie Infinity is just amazing, right? Like where you can have a game where the users actually own assets inside the game. And one really, really forward thinking idea I had, which I have no idea exactly how to implement this, um, is for the users to actually create the in-game assets, right? So like with most play to earn games, it's the central team that's creating the assets, and then the users can buy the assets. But with Hatch.art and these contests, you could build a game. Let's say it's a card trading game, right? So like Magic the Gathering or Pokemon, where you're just collecting cards. The users could actually create the art for the game. And then if you bought a pack of cards, let's say you spent, $6 to get 10 cards, 60 cents per card. If you actually bought an NFT that was created by a kid, 30 cents of that 60 cents could go directly to the kid while you use that card to play a really cool, fun trading game, which is really fun to play. And so one vision I have for this is to basically do a call out for art and assets, like that Genesis art that we did, the 2 lines of code. What if
Mm,
that went inside a currency, like a dollar bill, right? Instead of having Alexander Hamilton on a $10 bill, you had the Genesis art project on, a Hatch bill for a Hatch Genesis game is what I'm calling it, code name. And then so the first project that you make as you're learning art is this Genesis project, which becomes the currency. So you make that currency and you get like 10 coins inside the game just for learning how to code. And the next project could be Generative House. And if you make Generative House, that becomes your base. And if
yeah.
someone upvotes your house or buys your house actually now is stronger and better and worth more. Right. So the more you learn how to code, you're actually able to build the game.
That's so cool. Yeah, I wasn't fully getting it at first, but as you're explaining it now, like as you code, you get these in-game assets that are part of this massive economy, I guess.
Yeah.
Uh,
You just create a
sounds
big
really cool.
economy. And people who just want to play the game can just play the game. And, they know that if they buy a deck of Pokemon cards, it goes to some corporation in Japan, right?
Yeah.
But if you buy this asset, you know that half of it or 70% of it or some amount will actually go to, an 11-year-old in Sydney, Australia, and a 12-year-old in Munich, Germany, and like a 14-year-old in Los Angeles. And that, I think, assuming the gameplay is compelling, right? If the gameplay is not
Yeah,
compelling, it
that's
doesn't
always the
matter,
most important thing. Yeah.
right? But once the gameplay is compelling, I think you have like a lot of people just wanting to play the game simply because they know that their hard-earned money. First of all, they get to own the NFT when they buy it,
Hmm.
and second, the money that they're using or the ETH that they're using to purchase the in-game asset, half of that or 70% of it goes to a kid. who's actually learning how to code and building his technical skills. Like there's a flywheel there, there's a loop there that I think is really, really interesting. And that's probably 18 months out, right? Like I haven't
Yeah,
even hired my first game designer, but
that seems like a couple of years plus type thing.
right. But I think that could be a really, really neat way of just onboarding just a ton of people into Web3.
Yeah, and just
Yeah.
making it even more fun than it already is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
What about like in the next 6 months? What do you think
yes.
is on
So
the cards for Hatch?
we have like we have an open-ended learning system where you can pick any project you want out of our thousands of projects, and we're also building a linear learning system. So we have 418 skills that you can learn over 5 core competencies, which we've been developing since 2014. So it's pretty robust. And so we're going to launch probably in the next week or two the first 2 segments out of 200, where basically there's a linear learning system. So it feels more like a textbook or a step 1, step 2, step 3 system of learning rather than a sandbox. Right now, the whole thing is a sandbox. You do projects, you get skills, you get to customize, and it's fun for a certain type of learner. So that's one thing that we're launching. Every user at Hatch also has avatars, and we've paid a graphic designer to basically build a whole set of uh, avatars and accessories. And so there'll be this marketplace where you earn Hatch coins for doing projects, and then you can customize your avatar and show it off. And then social sharing, right? Every project you do, if you could share it with your friends, and then take that and build it into this concept of trading art with your friends. So it's
I
just
love it.
making Hatch more social.
Yeah.
That's the main goal.
So I think we've spoken a lot about how it's for kids, but adults can use it as well, right? Is that correct?
Yeah, adults can use it. The software is totally free. We have no restriction on birth date. You can go as low as 6. If you're younger than 6, because everything is typing based, um,
Mm.
we've taken the position, right or wrong, we've taken the position that like not even with your parents' help will you be able to type.
Yeah.
And obviously there are 5-year-olds that can type. And for all the people listening to this or watching this that have 5 years like this, my apologies. I'm happy to comp you an account for your uh,
Just lie.
just lie. Yeah, or just say your kid is 6 years old. But outside of that, we have a lot of adults who join from Zen Academy who are just learning how to code. And in our art lessons, which is on the nav bar in the upper right, um, the last set of art lessons are the first 4 lessons of Ringers out of 15.
Mm.
So you can actually spend time and really learn generative art in a very meaningful way through Hatch and build a livelihood if you want to be an
Yeah.
artist. Yeah.
That's I want to talk a bit more about ringers because I find that so fascinating. How did you break down like the ringers code into 18? Did you do that yourself? Did Dimitri help out? Did someone else get
Yeah.
involved?
Dimitri did not help out. He's a wonderful, wonderful person. He just wanted to make sure that at all times, I mentioned the 1956 essay in graphic design, which has the original idea for ringers.
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
and so, uh, but beyond that, he just said, just there's a license. Make sure you don't violate the license, and other than that, I'm cool with it. The way we think about code is that every 10 to 15 lines of code, sometimes it's 25, sometimes it's 5, but roughly every 10 to 15 lines, you should have one idea that you're putting into the code. It's almost like when you're writing a 5-paragraph essay. I think we've all written a 5-paragraph essay for English or history. You have your thesis paragraph at the top, your conclusion at the bottom, and then each paragraph has one idea, right? This is typically, this is what I was
Taking
taught.
me back a long
I know,
time, but yeah,
yes.
I remember these things
Right,
and
right. You
yeah,
remember these things, and you shouldn't like mix ideas and put 2 ideas in one paragraph.
yeah,
And so, good, clean code has the same idea. And what we did with Ringers is we basically took it out and we kind of, you know, wrote down beside every little chunk of code what is the idea in this line in this chunk of code, and then we broke it down into basically, it's 600 lines, so roughly 30 or 40 paragraphs where each paragraph is a function, right? And that function does one thing. And then in the first lesson, we teach the first 2 things, which is how to create a hash code and how to use that hash code to create a random function within your generative art project that is connected to this fixed thing called a hash code. The next chapter, like round 2, is how do we create a grid and connect it to the hash code. Then the next chapter is how do we make the grid a random size? And the next chapter is how do we add the white circles as well as the black circles? And then it goes on for there. And then adding the wrapping of the string is, I think, takes like 3 sections because it's somewhat complicated. But we
Yeah.
break it down, and it's 40 lines of code-ish per chapter, broken down into between 2 and 5 paragraphs. Each paragraph has a single idea.
Cool.
Yeah.
I would love to sit down and go through that if I have some spare time. That just sounds so interesting, and especially that and Fidenza would be
Yeah.
so cool to just see how it works from the inside out. I guess like we've all seen the outputs. Very few of us have seen the code for these masterpieces. So
Yeah, I think
yeah,
I think once we can do Fidenza and Ringers, we'll definitely do like a little PR thing, and my Twitter account will at Code Create Earn will
we'll post a link to it
yes, well
in the show notes.
exactly
Well, actually,
will
we'll post a link to that 1956 article as well, just so that
yes,
that's referenced there. Yeah.
we definitely want to show that off because it's super advanced content. It's the very end of of the product, but it's really important, right? So I think right now I'm still spending most of my time at the beginning of the product, making sure the onboarding experience is excellent. But I think one thing you'll see in 2022 in the next 6 months is to make sure people can get to that end content and actually deliver on creating complex generative art, which then they can use those skills and transfer those skills to building video games or
Mm,
working for a Web3 startup or you know working for Shopify or Amazon and making
yeah.
their parents happy.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so amazing. I want to ask about, I guess, the money, and like it's very clear that you're not doing this to make money. You have a real much larger vision, but it requires money to sort of run this whole thing and to fund these contests. Where is that money coming from? How is Hatch getting revenue? I guess.
Sure. So right now we're bootstrapped. Most of our revenue comes from these one-to-one lessons that we do. So if you join for free, you'll see an upgrade button somewhere. You click that and you'll be able to register for 30, 60, or 90 minutes a week, like piano lessons. So that's where most of the money comes from. And, we have ambitions for growing further and bigger. So if you're listening to this and you'd like to fund projects that can scale, um, you know, my Twitter is in the show notes.
What is it again?
At Code Create Earn.
There we go.
So
Yeah.
yeah, so that's basically how it's funded. It's been a small, stable business for 7+ years. I'm really proud of the whole thing. We're in the 4th largest school district in North America, Miami-Dade, which we beat out 3 really big ed tech companies: Pearson, Scholastic, and Cengage. We were all bidding for middle school computer science, and that was really fun because I just presented, and 5 months later they called and said, you beat out these billion-dollar companies. And I was like, we're just a team of 4 or 5. And they're like, yeah, but you have the best product. And I was like,
Yeah.
I know that.
Yeah.
So
That's
yeah,
awesome.
so we've had like some really awesome wins along the way. Like teachers and parents and students just with like really phenomenal testimonials. The global CEO of Junior Achievement Worldwide, um, he loves what Junior Achievement is all about: economic empowerment. And this idea of like middle schoolers being able to code and create a digital good, and then sell it as an NFT is really at the core of economic empowerment. And so we're actually
Yeah.
running a pilot with the U.S. Virgin Islands chapter of Junior Achievement. And if it goes well, he would like to see all 10 million students a year, um, you know, get a chance to code and create NFTs, which I think would be amazing. Again, that's like a 3 to 5 year
Yeah.
vision, right? Because but globally, yeah, I think there's the opportunity here where anybody who wants to set up their lemonade stand but learn technical and creative skills at the same time can can do that, which I think would be just phenomenal.
I love that. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what it's all about, really. Like the whole Web3 space, it's about the creator economy, power to the people, giving anyone the opportunity and knowledge and ability to create and get rewarded for their creations and to learn how, like it's great to say that, but it's difficult to do. Like a lot, we all say, hey, that's great, but unless you're already an artist who can create excellent one-on-one art, or an established generative programmer, or a Solidity dev, or one of a handful of things, how do you get started? Well, this is how the next generation can get started. So I think it's amazing.
Yeah, there's so much talent in Web3 and so many creative people doing amazing, wonderful things. I mean, I think one of my favorite tweet about the whole space is, someone said, a lot of my friends are leaving their 9 to 5 jobs to work
Yeah.
24/7 in Web3,
Yeah,
right?
I saw that. That's so true.
That is really the core of what Web3 is all about. And like,
Yeah.
that was another pivot point when I saw it. I was like, oh my God, there's so much energy in here in this whole
It's
space,
such
which
an
is just
electrifying space.
it's so much fun. Like once you start to get to know the people and like make connections, it's just really awesome. Like every
Yeah.
everybody's open and inviting for the most part, and they just want to build and create, and it's really fun to hang out. This is a pitch for leaving your job and joining Web3, but like, you know, it it's just really fun to work on stuff you want to work on, right?
Yeah.
And these people are just trying to create, media brands and gaming brands and culture brands, and metaverse brands, and it's stuff they're really really into, which really is actually the epitome of how Hatch got started, right? Computer science, the magic of building something useful, and really like having fulfillment in life is the magic of building something useful as well, right? If you're working on something and building something that's really appealing to you, it can really provide a lot of energy and juice to just get going, which is really amazing.
Yeah. It's every day I talk to people, literally every day, who tell me, I'm quitting my job next week. I'm putting my notice in 2 weeks. I've got this NFT project. We're going all in. And a lot of these people have extremely high profile jobs, partner at Goldman Sachs, or like, leading marketing at massive, massive. And it's just like they understand sort of this revolution, this tectonic shift that's happening in the world, basically going from Web 2 to Web 3, and they want to be part of it in a very, very real way. um and it's awesome, and it really is just more fun as well. It's like people don't want to work 9 to 5 for someone else, for some other company. And with Web 3, it really is, you get out what you put in, and you can create and own what you create and get rewarded for what you create. And if you have talents, your talents get rewarded. And now I'm recruiting for Web 3, but it's clear we're
Yes.
both advocates. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, no, and it's much more liquid, right? Like you can get to the point where you're issuing tokens or doing an NFT drop like within months of when you get started. If you
Mm.
right, like no guarantees, obviously, but
Right.
um,
Yeah. It is
yeah,
tough, but yeah, no, it doesn't take very long. It might feel like a long time because a week in the NFT space feels like a year,
right,
but you can get a lot done in a short amount of time, as long as you work hard and you like network and put your head down. But um, yeah, the
yeah.
opportunities are just infinite at the moment, and I don't see that slowing down for years.
Yeah, and I think that's one of
Yeah.
the reasons why I took this Web2 company and just decided, okay, it's going to be a hard right turn into Web3, and because I just saw the growth, right? Like, I mean, it's just really amazing. Just looking at art blocks, and you have all these artists who have 15 years of background, like literally the average number of years background of your average AB curated artist is 15 years, and
It's
now they're
incredible.
able to monetize all their hard work and the value, the aesthetic beauty they bring into the world, like through a phenomenal platform, like that's an inspiration, right? And
It really
seeing
is.
uh seeing these bigger brands come up, like any of the top 10 NFT projects, it's like seeing, Phoenix
Yeah.
like rising. Um yeah, like
There's so many like digital artists who've been creating digital art just because they love it and as their passion, and either making no money or very little money for 5, 10, 15, 20 years. And now all of a sudden, uh, they can sell their art, and people are willing to pay a lot of money for it because it's valuable. It's excellent, and it's great to see that.
Yeah, no, it's really a remarkable mechanic, right? Plus the resales are baked into the contracts. You know, they had
Kind
that
of.
kind
Technically,
of,
the royalties aren't in the contracts.
yeah,
It's marketplace enforced.
marketplace in force.
Yeah, by
Um,
like 99% of the time,
yeah,
yeah, the
and
creators get their royalties.
the
Yeah,
culture is really like everybody should get their royalties, which
yeah,
existed in contemporary art before. If you're going through a larger auction house like Sotheby's or
mm,
Christie's, so the royalties were going to artists before, as long as they could connect the dots. Uh,
yeah,
but in this case, because it's all transparent on the blockchain, as long as the marketplace says yes, we want that to happen, they know exactly which bank account or wallet, in fact, wallet to send the money
yeah,
to, which is great.
yeah. It's so great, and it's also just digital artists were just not having the ability to get any sort of real. I mean, I know some were making some money, but just now with this blockchain technology, digital art is now a real asset class, and it's just
Yeah. And
phenomenal.
it's growing, which is fantastic.
At an astonishing rate. Have you seen the market the last few
Yeah, no,
weeks? It's ridiculous.
it's really ridiculous. And what's interesting to me, like one of the line items that really sold me on this is all the people who play Fortnite, right? It's billions of dollars per year. They
Yeah,
are comfortable owning digital goods, right? Because that's all Fortnite is. You can become the number one player in Fortnite without spending a penny.
yeah,
You won't look good doing it, but you could. But 100% of the income that Fortnite makes is all about looking good on the system.
yeah.
It's buying stuff that just makes your character look cool. And these are people who are currently 12 to 18 years old for the most part,
Mhm.
and they're comfortable buying digital goods because that's what they're buying on Fortnite. Like when I play video games, I did not buy digital goods. I spent 50
Same.
bucks to get the cartridge or the
Yeah.
or the CD or whatever. But these people are buying digital goods, and when they turn 25, 30, 35, and they have their own bank account and they're
Mhm.
comfortable buying digital goods,
Yeah.
like it seems to me that's going to be a time where digital goods are relatively permanent in society.
Yeah. Honestly, before then, like
Yeah.
within a few years, I think, I guess like 5 years, they're just going to be so prevalent and commonplace, and a lot of the tech that we interact with on a day to day basis will be abstracted away, and so people will be buying and selling digital assets and not necessarily knowing that there's NFT technology or NFT technology. That's like ATM machine, but non fungible token technology. No, wait, that was right.
That was right. It's
Yeah. That was
NFTT.
right. That
Yeah.
was right.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I'm used to saying people saying NFT tokens. Anyway,
Yeah.
that people won't realize that they're interacting with them, and it'll just sort of be in the background. And I think we have to get to that level for NFTs to really go mainstream. But we will get there.
We'll get and I mean, it's coming, right? It's coming from a number of
Yeah.
different angles, which I think is totally fascinating. And I think that and you're going to need young people to power all this technology. And I think that fundamentally the K-12 system is really really good at teaching people how to read, how to do math, how to understand science, how to understand history, how to understand humanity, like lots of really important things. Like if you can understand what the Underground Railroad was and why it was there, that's like a deeply important part of being a human today to understand what it was like 200 years ago, right? These
Mm,
are important subjects to teach. Um, but I also think that over the last 40 years, uh, computer science has just also become at that level of importance, whether you're going to say it's like math or English, which is like, every year no matter what,
yeah.
or if you're just going to say like geography or history, which for the most part, we have to have some background in it. And yet, K-12 education is moving very slowly in teaching the basics of computer science. And all of a sudden, starting with Bitcoin and Ethereum, you have this new wave of education, which is actually really, really important. And that's not even on the radar yet. And yet, a good double-digit percent of jobs 5 years from now, if not more, will all be based on Web3 technology.
Yeah.
And so there's this massive, massive gap that just needs to be filled, and the building needs to start today. And so that's why I'm here.
Amazing.
Yeah,
That's I think that's a great note to end on.
sure. That's fantastic.
Well, I guess one last thing. Is there anything else you want to mention about Hatch or anything you're doing? Any last plugs?
Um, Not really. I think that we have Hatch Coding, we have Hatch.art. We're going to be uh, bringing this to NFT communities. So if you're the leader of an NFT community and you would like to do something for your community in between big announcements, right? Like if you're releasing a mobile game or a token, right? Obviously, that's those are the highlights. But over the course of a year, I think one of the interesting things about these communities is you can't just have general chatter about the floor or the sales price or like when is the big event
Yeah,
happening, because there's only one or two. I mean, even with Bored Apes, which is clearly the community doing the biggest announcements, it's still months and months before you get a mutant drop or an ape coin or the mobile game, and in between, how do you just sustain that how do you keep the community together? Well, if there's a whole bunch of people inside the community whose kids are doing generative art and they can chat about it, it's a great way of creating glue for the community. So that's my plug is, um, you know, we'll bring that glue to your community if you're interested.
I love it. Yeah, you make so many great points there. It's the importance of community. It was like the word in the NFT space for 2021, and it still is now. It's so important. A lot of communities, I don't want to say fail, but like they can struggle with building a really passionate community that's we're most people in the space, you're in 100 discords, you're in 200 discords. Finding the handful that you actually want to spend time in, that is important. And if you have an NFT project, you want your community to be one of those. And that's where I think things like generative art, for the kids of the community members, and bringing that sort of uh, event or structure is just an excellent way of doing it. I mean, alongside other community building events. But yeah, you're so right that projects should. Uh, it's just so helpful to have that in between those big announcements.
Yeah, right. I mean, building an NFT community is all about having enough events so it's interesting enough to stay part of that community, right? So if you're in real life, it'd be like trips to the museum or wine and cheese functions or charity
Yeah,
auctions or something to bring people together on a regular basis. In the NFT community, most of those things you can't do. There's some other events that you can do, and I'm hoping very humbly that these generative art contests and bringing the kids together could be really interesting, because if the people of the community start talking about the art that their kids are making in the Discord channels and other people are commenting on it on a weekly basis, then all of a sudden you're like, there's a reason for me to stick around this community because
yeah,
my friends are here and they like my kids' art and I like their kids' art. And that's nice glue that you can
yeah.
put all the other stuff on, right? The giveaways and the raffles and the big announcements, right? And the partnerships that come less frequently.
I love it. I
Yeah.
love every bit about that. So yeah, thank you so
Yeah.
much. This was a
Yeah.
really great talk.
Yeah, thank you so much. Look forward to doing this again at some point in time in the future.
Absolutely. All right, and there we have it. Thank you for watching. If you made it through to the end, which presumably you did, if you're watching this, uh, we have posted all the links in the description below to everything we mentioned: the Twitter pages, the website, the art we mentioned, the 1956 article referenced about ringers. Yeah, we've got a bunch of really exciting episodes coming up. I'm going to be Yeah, I think I can mention them. So I'm talking to Jenkins Valet tonight. I'm really excited for that. Talking to Vultura from Psychedelics Anonymous coming up soon. I'm talking to Kunal Kapoor from Loverbot, which is this really interesting project coming out of India. Talking to Luke and Owen from Thingdoms, another really cool project that I'm a huge fan of. I've got a few more lined up, which haven't been 100% finalized yet. But yeah, I'm just going to keep bringing great interviews and chats because you know because of the people that are willing to jump on and share their knowledge and wisdom and insights into their projects and the NFT space in general. So once again, I'll ask if you liked it, then literally like it, and subscribe and comment. That stuff really helps. Yeah, thank you.